Kyle Pitts is one of the best tight ends in college football history. His career at Florida was unbelievable, and he is already a young superstar for the Atlanta Falcons in the NFL. Everyone knows and loves Kyle Pitts, but the subject of today's video was supposed to be the next version of him. I mean, sort of. He was the next guy up at Florida, and in today's video we're going to talk about who he is, his time at Florida, and ultimately why he didn't pan out. But before we can talk about that, we are on the road to 100K, so quickly be sure to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button for the algorithm, and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now, let's get started. So you're probably wondering who the subject of today's video is, and it is none other than former Florida tight end Kemore Gamble. But before we could talk about him, check out my playlist of all my What Happened to videos. Let me know a guy I could take a look at in my next video, and now let's go back in time. So as we go back in time, Kemore was born and raised in Miami, Florida, and the guy was a natural athlete. I couldn't find much about his early years, but eventually he would arrive at Kemore Gamble High School and would be seen as a future star. He showed enormous potential, but as a sophomore, he was pretty disappointing. He only caught 15 passes for 187 yards and 3 touchdowns, which was not typically what makes up a 4-star recruit. Yeah, the guy was ranked super high, but his production didn't match. There had to be a catch. It was just how freakishly athletic he was. He eventually would decide to transfer to Miami Southridge High School, and there he'd try to produce more. It didn't really matter though, as he was quickly seen as a high-ceiling player and offers would begin to pour in. In 2015, he would actually come to a decision, as after he attended a camp at Miami, he decided to pounce on their scholarship offer and commit to the Hurricanes. With that offer came many. Schools from all over the country became interested in him, as he got offers from Miami, Rutgers, Syracuse, West Virginia, and Louisville all in a short time. But as I said, he already knew where he wanted to go, and he chose the Canes. The rising junior decided he would stay home and play for Miami, but things would change. Also, at the time, he was actually considered a wide receiver prospect and not a tight end. After the Al Golden era came to an end at Miami, he would be asked about his commitment status and if he was going to reopen his recruitment. He said, quote, "Nope, I'm all you. I love the coaches, they keep in contact with me, it's close to home, and it's a good education." So at this point, Kemore was going to be the next great Miami tight end, but that didn't end up happening. He wanted Mario Cristobal to become the next head coach for the Canes, but they would end up going with Mark Richt. And while I couldn't find anything about that changing his decision, he decided to reopen his recruitment, so obviously he didn't love the Richt hire. Down in Gainesville, Florida, they had not signed a tight end in the 2016 class, so it was extremely important for them to land one during the 2017 cycle. Kemore became an immediate target. On his team, he had a teammate by the name of Sean Davis, and he'd become a star for them, and would also later become a Gator. From there, Davis would become a star at Florida, a 5th-round draft pick, and someone who is still playing in the NFL today. But would Davis be able to convince Gamble to come with him? Let's find out. Eventually, yes, he did choose the Gators, and Jim McElwain landed a big-time player right out of their rival Miami's backyard. So why did Kemore commit to Florida? He said, quote, "I will make history there, and they're getting a go-getter type of player. I chose the Gators because it's been my dream school since I was a newborn, so it was in my blood. I also have a chance to come in and play early. The last reason why is because who doesn't want to play in the swamp? It's the place to be, and it's always rocking." The funny thing is, in my research, I could not find anything about him talking about Florida being his dream school, and if it was, why did he commit to Miami originally? I have so many questions, but it doesn't really matter. Gamble was an athletic high school star, and he would bring his hard-working mindset to Florida. He said, quote, "My dad always taught me to never run from competition. You always gotta sit down and face it and just never run. My dad and my stepdad used to always tell me that. I was brought up hard, and nothing comes easy." But would he even stay there? As he continued to perform really well, other schools wanted him. He actually picked up an offer from Alabama after he went to a camp there, and many wondered, would he flip to the Crimson Tide? He was not going to be going to Alabama. He said, quote, "They're pushing hard on me and talking to me about decommitting, but at this point, I'm all committed to the Gators." So yeah, his commitment to the Gators would not waver, but both Alabama and Tennessee made a strong push for him. He was signed to become a member of the Swamp, and scouts were excited about his impact. They said, quote, "Gamble will draw comparisons to Jordan Reed because he's not a normal tight end prospect. It's because he has superior receiving and route running skills. Also, you should expect Gamble to line up the wide receiver spot at times because of his speed and his size advantage. Gamble will be a matchup nightmare in the red zone." So basically, this guy was seen as a tight end hybrid receiver who was going to catch a lot of touchdowns. Sounds good to Florida fans. By this time, 24/7 Sports had changed him to a tight end. According to them, he was a 4-star recruit, the number 7 tight end, and the 281st best player in the class of 2017. After a long, weird recruitment, Gamble would now try to become a star for Florida. When Gamble arrived at Florida, Jim McElwain was obviously the head coach, but he never got to play for him. He would redshirt in 2017 and would finally see the field in 2018. At this time, the Gators went out and got Mississippi State head coach Dan Mullen, and things were supposedly going to be on the up. It was not all easy for him. When he was a freshman, he was hit with a major roadblock. His father suffered a stroke when he was a freshman at Florida, and to this day, his dad remains physically challenged. When you're trying to adjust to college and college football, it is not easy to have a parent or a loved one medically challenged, so I bet that was extremely difficult. In 2018, Gamble would catch 7 passes for 58 yards. Not great, but again, he was a backup to Pitts. In 2020, his role would become more significant, as behind Pitts, he had 10 catches for 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. As we all know though, Pitts would have an historic season. He would leave for the NFL, and everyone looked to Gamble as the next big thing. His tight ends coach said, quote, "You'd be hard-pressed in America to have a better, more complete tight end room than what I have. Kemore Gamble is going to be the best tight end in the SEC. What do you think about that?" Kemore at the time was just focused on himself. He said, quote, "Kyle Pitts is Kyle Pitts, and I'm Kemore Gamble." Things would become extremely difficult for him going into his senior year though, as his mother would now have health issues. Apparently, she didn't feel well and wound up in the hospital for 30 days. The scariest part was, she went into a coma. His mom said, quote, "They told Kemore and my other kids I wasn't going to make it," and he was scared. During her month in a coma, her mom had forgotten how to walk, and she would have to relearn that. In her early days of recovering, she was confined to a wheelchair, and there was no way this didn't have a major effect on Kemore. His mom said, quote, "From my understanding, the doctors did a Zoom for them. They would either Zoom or FaceTime me, and it was not a good sight because I was hooked up on all different kinds of machines. I felt bad for Kemore. I was getting calls saying he was crying at the first game. He was just so used to me being at the game. It was really unfortunate because A, this was tough on him, and B, she was not there in the stands to support him. So when Florida had a lot of off the field and on the field struggles, Kemore didn't have his mother to turn to. While he wasn't Kyle Pitts level, he wasn't a complete bust either. He caught 31 passes for 414 yards and 4 touchdowns. This was by far his best season in a Florida uniform, but to many, it was disappointing. You can blame that on him, you can blame that on the coaches, or you can blame that on the quarterback room. I think you can mix it all around to different people. One person who did take notice about him was their quarterback, Emory Jones. He said, quote, "Seeing him come into the building every day and just working his tail off and seeing it all pay off, especially with what he was going through, I know it was hard for him, but with him going out there and doing it, it was definitely exciting for me and him. I'm definitely proud of him." So yeah, he had an above average season and inspired people around him, but in terms of his comparison to becoming the next Kyle Pitts, it didn't work out. He was a 3rd-team All-SEC player according to Pro Football Focus, but that would not be enough for him to save his NFL draft stock. He probably would have gone undrafted in the 2022 draft, so he decided he would use the extra year of eligibility to his advantage, and he'd actually transfer. Maybe it was because of the Billy Napier hiring, or maybe it was because he actually wanted to leave, but either way, he would end up going to UCF. Fun fact, the Gators actually played the Knights in their bowl game, and little did he know he'd be headed to that school. The Knights are under head coach Gus Malzahn, and while they did lose Dylan Gabriel, they brought in Ole Miss quarterback John Rice Plumlee, so it should be an exciting offense, and I'm very curious to see how Gamble will do next year. In terms of what went wrong for him, honestly, I think it's 3 things. He didn't really have that great of production going into this year, which too led to expectations that were way too high. Finally, there was a lot of off-the-field factors this year, and combine that with poor quarterback play led to some people to think it was a disappointing year. Tight ends are not known to be as productive as Kyle, so those comparisons really hurt him, and Kemore's story definitely inspired me, and I'm super pumped to see how he does at UCF and how he will eventually do in the NFL. I will definitely be rooting for him next year, and let me know what you guys think. What do you think went wrong for Gamble? What player should I take a look at in my next video? And what's any other topic I could also take a look at? Be sure to let me know down below, smash that like button if you want to support today's video, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including my video about what happened to Trajan Bridges. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.